welcome back to Hand the Mic Over. You are listening to part 2 of last week's episode featuring Marcus, Kyle, KJ, and Andrew from Brampton. If you missed last week's episode, you can find it on Spotify and YouTube at Hand the Mic Over. We left off when Kyle was asking the host, Mevish, what her thoughts were on facing discrimination while growing up in Toronto. Yeah, growing up, so I'm from Pakistan and I was raised with Pakistani culture in my home, and I think I was in Marcus's group in terms of academic achievement and all that, so I felt like teachers would give me more attention and they would be more inclined to giving me opportunities, but slowly that started to change. As I got older, students around me were just not very accepting of me. There's a lot of discrimination against brown people. Again, we're often in the butt of the joke. It can be anything from the way we speak, to the way we dress, to the foods we eat. There's a lot of harmful stereotypes. And what I started realizing was, oh wait, I don't think I can be brown when I'm at school. So it almost felt like code switching, where I would come home and I'd be speaking my language and wearing whatever clothes we wear, enjoying my culture. And then as soon as I would step out, I was like, I cannot let anyone find out that I'm brown. Even though my skin is brown, everyone already knew that. I was like, I cannot show that at all. And in terms of discrimination with teachers, 100%. When I was in middle school, I also kind of grew up in a great area. There was a lot of drug dealing, gang activity, all of that. Pretty much everyone in my community was like a person of color, but the teachers were mostly white. And there was definitely this superiority complex that they all had, where they were better than us. There was this one teacher, I remember, she actually got suspended because there was this girl who was talking back to her or something, and she was like, oh, well, at least I'm not an immigrant living in a tiny little apartment covered in cockroaches to make ends meet.
There's no way. There's no way a teacher said that. That's ridiculous. Come on, man.
The worst part is that she just got suspended, so she came back.
Typical school board. Yeah, typical school board.
Yep, public school. I mean, I know, Kyle, you mentioned that you went to Catholic school, but from what I've heard, apparently Catholic school is not any better in these days.
No. Probably worse, to be honest. Yeah.
Did you all go to Catholic school?
Yeah, we all went to the same schools.
Okay. Yeah, so then there's no difference between the public school board and the Catholic school board.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. I'm really enjoying this so far. It's a good platform. I'm liking the questions you're asking. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I'm kind of going with the flow of what you guys are saying. So you're definitely taking charge of the direction of this interview.
That's the way to do it, though. You know, it's not forced.
Sure. Exactly.
And I mean, you guys are also willing to speak. I really appreciate that too, because if you're not going to open up and be vulnerable, we're not going to get a story, you know?
Exactly.
For sure.
Okay, so you guys had the privilege of growing up with each other and growing up in a community that was so diverse, but there are a lot of kids who are in Toronto and the GTA who come from the same backgrounds as you guys and don't have that community around them. What would be something that you feel either the school or society or media or anything here could do to help those kids feel more accepting of their culture and their identity?
This is a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. That's a really good question, though.
Yeah, it's a great question.
It depends what approach we take. Like, when it comes to the media, I don't think there's no shame in the media, especially nowadays.
I feel like we're trying to think of something so broad. Could just narrow it down and make it basic. Like, for example, how school boards just have programs and clubs. You can just incorporate that more. For media, you can just market more clubs. You could just market out like a set up shop in Toronto, diversity, like culture diversity program or club. Everyone's welcome, you know?
Yeah. To expand on that, I think clubs and sports activity is like the number one thing to steer those kids away from the streets, because especially for me, when it comes to sports, it's kind of like a guideway, you know? That's kind of like the main reason that kept me out of trouble personally. Yeah. Because growing up young playing sports, it's like you're not really focused on anything else. And I feel like when it comes to a lot of these kids growing up bad in the GTAs, because they kind of don't even get that leeway. So it's like they have no other choice but to focus on what's happening right in front of them, right? So it's the streets, it's the violence. And to touch on like the school point as well, like I think the school should do a better job to pinpoint what kids actually enjoy in their area, because they'll put out meaningless clubs. Like, no offense, but not everybody likes chess, right? So it's like they'll have chess clubs, but only 2 people are showing up. Why don't you make like, I don't know, after school basketball clubs or after school maybe video game clubs, you know? Yeah. I'm sure then, like, you know, if you start expanding,
anything
for sure there's gonna be more
like
kids.
Someone like of our age, just make a club from an age range, like for example from 16 to 22 years old. Just have everyone come to the club and just collaborate with each other,
collectively do something they enjoy.
Yeah, just do something together that can make like a brotherhood or just a community in general.
For sure.
Make a team, a
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, there you go. I guess to expand a bit on the school aspect of things, I think people just know naturally that representation matters. So if you know, I guess, the demographics of your school community, and I know like the board appoints teachers to different locations, but you can kind of play with that to see what will be more effective, where what will lead kids to feel like they're part of a community rather than the school being something external. If the teachers are like, you feel you're a part of a community, they really have your best interest, it will make school feel like something you want to go to versus a chore where you don't feel like you belong. In terms of clubs, I think that first hearing other people's perspective is the most important part because knowledge destroys ignorance, right? If you can have things like these diversity clubs, or you can share common interests with people that you may not know but you meet through whatever you all like. So for example, for us it was soccer, right? But that can be literally any activity. If you have that network or that ability to do something that you all enjoy, it creates that community feel, and then you feel like you belong to something. I feel like as people in general, that's just so important. So yeah, just having those programs in place, they're priceless, you know?
Yeah. Do you have any specific example of some sort of program that is integrated with community work?
The big brothers, big sisters of your area. I know at least for our city, it's not as widely promoted, but that kind of creates like an environment where you can look up to somebody that maybe is, if they're in your community. I know you're saying the question is based off if you're like alone, but you have an older mentor or a group of students that you could just talk to that kind of share like same ideas. So I think they're a really good not-for-profit organization that promotes that feeling of like of welcoming and like, of having somebody of guidance. But I think in terms of just programs that the community or schools can integrate in general, from what I can think of so far, is just having a diversity club, letting people be able to showcase where they're from. And then in that case, if there's different minorities, say for example there's a majority group and let's say 10% minorities, they can learn about each other and then they can have that community based in themselves. So that would be productive too, I believe.
So to add on to what Marcus even said, like a perfect example of that for us that we experienced is this program called Boys to Men at our high school. So essentially it was just all the older kids, like grade 11s and 12s, and just mentoring the grade 9s and the grade 10s, or not necessarily like age wise, but more so I guess the people that the teachers thought were quote unquote bad kids, not like really the most mature kids. So it'd be like some of us mentoring them and just helping them out through different activities. So we would have basketball, we'd have soccer, we'd have volleyball, then we'd have arts and crafts, pie eating contests. We just have like a bunch of stuff like that that would just be incorporated throughout the day. And it wasn't just for guys, they also had a program for like girls themselves.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've never heard of something like
Yeah,
that.
I literally had forgot, but I think that really made a difference, especially in our community at the time, because it provided guidance and it was something that was considered like cool, you know, like you wanted to be a part of it, and it was positive influence no matter what. It was keeping children from like doing nonsense outside. The school as a community.
Yeah, you would even have barbering classes, and I know they did like hairdressing and stuff like that. So like, it just brought everyone together. I know for a fact so much people made new friends that day. Knowing that that program was set up at how it was, and probably still is set up to this day, it's just great knowing that something like that is out in this world that can help people just create a bond. Doesn't matter your race or not, right? Because that whole place was diverse. Like that whole program was diverse of each culture.
That sounds amazing. And was that like an after school program or was that during class?
It was after school. I'm pretty sure it just happens like once every year or something, though. That's the only thing that it was. But it was one thing, but it made such a drastic change. The teachers, the students, the staff, like, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and I definitely think that one thing that I'm finding out from all these interviews is that people just want people.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what helps you feel accepted.
For sure.
Now, who named it Boys to Men? And were they a very big fan of 90s boy band music by any chance?
Yo, I don't even know who the founder was for real. I'm pretty sure it's
probably Mr. Johnson,
that was
bro.
established
Johnson.
way before.
It had to be.
Had to be. It's probably one of our human resources.
Yeah, he was like support staff. You know how I'd mentioned like there's a couple of people that were from the same cultural places, like as majority of the student body, there's only a few black teachers, and he was like, I don't know, I think he was just support staff. So like, yeah, he kind of took the time to really understand what the kids are thinking and what they're doing, and with that, I guess he was able to implement a program that was actually really effective. I guess he was a fan of the band as well.
I was trying to hold in my laugh because you guys are being so serious. but the name was just, I had to comment on it. It sounds like you have a framework set for something that could make such a huge impact on so many people's lives here. I really hope that people hear this podcast and hear this idea because it sounds really, really beneficial. If I had something like this growing up myself, I think I would have felt like I could be myself a lot sooner. So great work that your school's doing. Sure, it has its cons, but it seems like there's very good pros to it.
Yeah, I think as you said, self-expression was, I think, the key thing. Because, like, you got to see, I guess, kind of the older kids just being themselves and passing that on to the newer generation, right? Just reinforcing, like, positive behaviors as a whole, so.
And just not even the program itself, but the people as well, regardless of what they came from, like their background and stuff, how they act and everything. Those type of people are the people that help you grow as an individual as well and as a group. Makes you realize what they came from and how they were brought up and be so grateful from what you have right now. And it just gives you a different perspective of life on your personal life and like theirs as well. Like it helps you reflect on that too.
Any of you guys here eldest siblings?
Yeah, I am.
No, I feel like not having an older sibling also made me feel like I had to figure things out on my own.
Definitely.
Having mentors like this, that would have been a game changer for sure. We're now approaching the last part of the podcast, and this is where we dive a little bit more into your cultures or the cultures that your parents raised you with. And my first question is, have any of you traveled to your country before?
No.
I have not.
No.
Not yet.
We went to Jamaica, but
I'm tripping. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
no, I'm thinking, you know what it was? I was thinking of Guyana.
Yeah, that's fair. That's why I said we went to Jamaica. It's only one
Yeah,
of two.
but yeah, I have, honestly, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking of
So Jamaica, you've been to Jamaica.
Yeah.
And Marcus, you've also been to Jamaica?
Yeah, but I'm not from there. Actually, my family went to my Caribbean island like last year. I wasn't invited though.
Ruth.
Oh no,
What about
It's
you?
crazy work.
I guess then this question is directed towards KJ. When you went to Jamaica, do you feel like you saw any different cultural norms or societal norms that someone from Toronto might not be aware of?
Oh yeah, for sure. When it comes to Caribbean countries, I wouldn't stretch to the complete opposite, but you notice the cultural difference right away, for sure. For example, first day I was over there, most businesses close before 8 p.m. So the context behind, I actually went to Jamaica with everyone in this class. So we all went this year and we landed in the afternoon, I believe.
Yeah, late afternoon,
Like
evening.
6
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah, so like when we landed, I was like, yo, I'm expecting stores to be open. It's like around 8 o'clock and there's literally no, there's literally no stores open. And I'm pretty sure it was like late at night as well. And we were trying to get a taxi and we were trying to call taxis and nobody was answering. And that was kind of like my first big culture shock. Like stores don't open late in Jamaica. So that's one big thing.
Definitely very different from the nightlife of Toronto.
Yeah, for sure. You come to Brampton, Toronto, you have stores open till like 3 p.m. But now over there, people pretty much finish work once the sun sets.
Yeah.
First thing that popped in my head was work-life balance.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone could just get off work at the same time and then go home and relax. That would be amazing. I know it's not practical over here, but I guess they're doing it and it works.
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of contributes to that is just how much life revolves around the sun in a way, right? Over there, it's more prioritized because most people aren't doing high-tech work, if that makes sense. So things that we don't really consider, electricity, like even water, things like that, like drying your clothes in the sun is way more common. They kind of live a more simple life, if that makes sense. I think that it's more based off of the natural cycle of life versus the artificial one that we live in, at least in North America.
Ooh, do you want to elaborate on that?
That's a big one.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like we can talk about this. We can go at this one.
We could go on with this all day, bro.
This
I'm
is one.
so interested. Let's do it.
All these guys can contribute probably the same amount as I can, but I kind of feel like over here everything's made up in a way. So let's keep it very fundamental. Money is really made up, right? And then how you view it here is very different versus other parts of the world. Things like community support for one another, like actually forming a community, not just living in boxes as we kind of do here, like apartments in Toronto. You'll be living with like 300 people and maybe interact with one of them a year versus over there it's still like based on villages or geographical areas have like much more of an influence because you all have to deal with like the same things, right? And you're kind of living more of a simple life, communicating with your neighbors nonstop, less involved with technology in your phone, just really more of like a basic way of living. Like we kind of evolved, but I think it's to a point where it's like maybe not even beneficial for humanity as a whole, but that's like a whole different discussion.
That's a good point for sure.
So basically that point again of life revolving around people and having that people connection.
Exactly. And I think that's how humans are meant to live. I guess the first people were really tribal, they used to move as tribes before metropolises became a thing. You still had a group of people that you were familiar with, similar to like how apes still do. So yeah.
Yeah. For Andrew and Kyle, did you guys feel like you didn't belong when you went to Jamaica, or did you feel like that community lifestyle was something that even you guys could adjust to right away?
It definitely was something that I personally felt I could adjust to. I was definitely viewed as different. It was really blatant. Like they would call me Chinaman, which didn't bother me at all. Yeah, Chinaman. But it was kind of fun because I used their prejudice against them, and I was able to bargain with them because they knew I wouldn't budge, just because I know that there's this notion that Asian people are good negotiators. So I kind of used that to my advantage. It was pretty fun to play around with, but I didn't feel that much of a minority over there.
Would you say that you were being called that with malicious intent?
Definitely not. I think it was more so just ignorance rather than malice, because compared to here in the GTA, you don't see that much diversity in Jamaica.
What about you, Andrew? Would you say that you felt like you were standing out when you were there?
For me personally, obviously, yeah, I'll be the one person that'll be standing out compared from everyone else, obviously, because everyone's like a darker skin tone than I am. But I wouldn't say I felt targeted. I felt more like welcomed, if anything.
Yeah.
And knowing that for me personally, since I have like a lot of friends that are Caribbean, I'm very in tune with the culture itself. So just being able to know like the culture already, like I was able to adapt to it and be able to have a normal conversation with the citizens there. It was very easy for me. For the person that was living under the house that we were staying at, we had an easy conversation that just flowed very well. Like it was just someone like you can just see as a friend easily. You talk to them for like 5 minutes and you made a friend instantly down there, right? So it wasn't more so of like feeling like I was out of place, honestly. If anything, I would say I felt very safe and welcome.
Definitely. I'd like to talk about a story that we all experienced when we were down there. And I feel like it would have gone a lot differently with the Western culture and being in the city, in the GTA. So we had a rental car, and then we popped our spare tire, and after that we put tire after. Just for tire shopping. We were like stranded in the middle of Jamaica. We had no idea where we were. Both times people pulled over and helped us out.
Yeah,
and it was
literally
really intimate, and they were like really welcoming, and you could tell their intent was to help us. Like they had good intentions. I feel like in bigger cities like the GTA, there are more people that would ignore you, go on about their day. Maybe because of a bigger population, everyone just thinks someone else is gonna help. I'm not sure what it is. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, even to add on to that, back to what we were speaking on before, real life versus artificial life. A lot of people down there in Jamaica, some people view them as needy and like ignorant, but for me at least, what I experienced was the complete opposite. They went out their way to just help us with a helping hand, not asking for anything in return. So the fact that down there they're willing to provide help without anything in return, compared to down here, since the artificial life so and so, like quote unquote, you would expect someone to want something in return down here, compared to down there in Jamaica, they wouldn't, right? I feel like back to like what we were saying, how money's made up. For them to even help us, like money was the last thing on their mind, compared to the artificial life, like money is the first thing on people's mind. Yeah, just to tie those two and two together.
Yeah, for sure.
We would even offer to give them something in return, like money or whatever it would be, and they wouldn't even want to take it, but we just insisted of like giving it to them.
Wow, I'm just blown away a little bit. You guys made a really good point that I think if that happened in the city,
there's no way. No one stopped.
Yeah, no one stopped.
Yeah, it's just like a possibility.
And then even before like the tire went flat, there was people that gave us warning. They rolled down their window and said, "Yo, like this is what's happening. You should pull over or get it fixed." And then like I remember the first time it happened, the guy hopped out of his car like without even thinking and just got to help him. Like
Is road rage a thing they're
Oh, for sure.
Oh, because I was thinking people are being so nice over there as they drive over here, they'll flip you off,
Nah, the roads are crazy.
Driving in Jamaica is
driving down there is worse than it is down here.
It's way worse. It's way worse. Like they're still willing to help.
10 times worse.
Yeah. It's like you got to think about it. It's like old Caribbean roads and insane people driving. It's not a good mix.
And it's not even roads.
Yeah, like very heavily poor.
Like you're driving in mountains, not even like roads. Like the main cities will obviously have its like main roads, but once you're out of that city, it's just straight mountains.
Yeah, you're driving on the landscape of the island, so it's a lot of hills. A lot of poor pavement, a lot of bends.
A lot of potholes.
Yeah, I
all
would
that.
even consider those roads.
But the views over there.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
unbelievable. Just being able to like capture those type of moments in life, it shows you.
Shows you for sure.
There's a
Would you
deeper
say-
meaning to life.
Would you say that this trip was a life-changing trip for you guys?
For sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I
Like,
would say so. Well,
yeah, I mean, especially experience it with my brothers too. Like, it places like a huge impact in my life, knowing that I got to experience the real culture other than the fake one, like the resort where you're boxed in. Whereas we actually got to experience the real culture and the real life of it. It definitely played a huge impact of my brain chemistry of how I see life in general now.
100%.
Sounds like I need to book a trip and go down there now.
Well, if we go back again, you're invited.
Hey, thank you.
it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And again, the point that you guys said of being able to experience it together, I think that's huge. Like having
For
privilege
sure.
to do that.
We'll do
Privilege is a
it.
good word. It's a great word to describe that. Yeah, it's a blessing.
Yeah,
literally.
privilege for sure. Having the opportunity.
Someone said blessing, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Alright, if you'd like to hear the rest of this episode, then stay tuned next week. Until then, check out our Spotify and our YouTube channel at Hand the Mic Over, and don't forget to check out our Instagram at Hand the Mic Over for pictures from today's episode. Thank you for listening!